The moment the brush swept across the ancient stone, the archaeologist froze. There, beneath centuries of dust and earth, lay an object that shouldn't exist, a relic so out of place, it sent a shiver down their spine. This wasn't just another artifact. It was a mystery, a whisper from the past that defied everything we thought we knew, and it's far from alone. Across the globe, buried beneath deserts, jungles, and even modern cities, lie discoveries that challenge our understanding of history itself. From impossible technologies to civilizations that vanish without a trace, the past is full of puzzles waiting to be solved. Think you know history? Think again. Because what if I told you there are ruins older than the pyramids, hidden in plain sight, or that some ancient artifacts seem to possess knowledge far beyond their time? These aren't just gaps in the record, they're glaring inconsistencies, clues that something extraordinary once walked this earth. And today, we're diving deep into 25 of the most baffling archaeological finds ever uncovered. Each one is a story, a riddle wrapped in time, waiting for someone to piece it together. So what's really out there? Imagine standing at the edge of a dig site, staring at an object that makes no sense. A map carved with impossible accuracy, a skeleton belonging to no known species, a city swallowed by the sea, its streets still echoing with secrets. These aren't just curiosities, they're windows into a past we're only beginning to understand. And as we explore these enigmas, you'll start to see history not as a fixed story, but as a living, breathing mystery, full of twists even the brightest minds can't explain. Ready to question everything? Let's begin. The waves off the Greek island of Antikythera churned violently in the year 1900, when divers searching for sponges stumbled upon something far more valuable, a shipwreck packed with ancient treasures. But among the statues and jewelry, one object stood out, a corroded lump of bronze and wood, barely recognizable. It wasn't until decades later, when researchers painstakingly cleaned and examined it, that the truth came to light. This wasn't just a relic, it was a machine, a complex handcrafted device with interlocking gears precisely arranged like the inner workings of a clock. Yet this wasn't some medieval invention. It dated back over 2,000 years to a time when historians believed such technology simply didn't exist. Dubbed the Antikythera Mechanism, this ancient marvel has been called the world's first computer. And once you see how it worked, the name fits. Tiny engraved markers tracked the movements of the sun, moon, and planets with staggering accuracy. Turn the handle and the gears would align to predict eclipses years in advance, even accounting for the moon's irregular orbit. It could chart the dates of Olympic Games, serve as an astronomical calendar, and display the positions of celestial bodies on any given date. The sophistication is mind-boggling. Here's what really stuns researchers. Nothing even close to this complexity appears again in the historical record for over 1,000 years. Medieval clocks crude by comparison, Renaissance astronomy tools still playing catch-up. So how did the ancient Greeks engineer something so advanced only for the knowledge to vanish? Some speculate it was the work of Archimedes himself, lost when his city fell to Rome. Others believe it hints at a wider, forgotten tradition of ancient technology. But one thing's certain, the Antikythera Mechanism forces us to rewrite what we thought we knew about the past. Because if this existed, what else might have been lost to time? Deep in the vaults of Yale University's Voynich Library lies a book like no other, a crumbling 200-page mystery that has defied understanding for centuries. The Voynich Manuscript, named after the antique dealer who acquired it in 1912, is written entirely in an unknown script, its pages crawling with looping, alien characters that spiral across parchment in a language no one can read. Flip through its delicate leaves and you'll find something even stranger. Illustrations of plants that don't exist, women bathing in emerald green pools connected by twisting tubes, and celestial charts mapping unknown constellations. It's a puzzle wrapped in vellum, and to this day, not a single word of it has been definitively decoded. Cryptographers, linguists, and even wartime codebreakers have thrown their best tools at the Voynich, from frequency analysis to artificial intelligence. Yet every attempt collapses like a house of cards. The text follows patterns. It's not random scribbles, but it matches no known language structure. Some argue it's an elaborate medieval cipher, a secret alchemist's notes disguised to evade the church. Others insist it's a lost language, perhaps from a vanished culture, or even a deliberate hoax meant to baffle future generations. The most tantalizing theory: that it's a glimpse into forgotten knowledge, a botanical and astronomical guide so advanced we simply lack the key to unlock it. Then there are the illustrations. Those unearthly plants with leaves like serpents and roots coiled like springs suggest either an artist's wild imagination or a flora utterly alien to our world. The so-called balneological section, with its nude figures submerged in cryptic liquid-filled diagrams, hints at alchemical or medicinal rituals if only we could read the instructions. Even the zodiac pages, adorned with unfamiliar symbols swirling around women holding stars, suggest a cosmology unlike anything in recorded history. What makes the Voynich Manuscript truly haunting is its resistance to time. Carbon dating places it between 1400 and 1438, yet it feels untethered from any era. Was it the work of a lone genius playing with an invented language, a relic from a cult with beliefs too dangerous to write plainly? Or could it be, as some fringe researchers propose, a message not meant for human eyes at all? One thing's certain: until someone cracks its code, the Voynich remains history's most beautiful, frustrating riddle, and perhaps that's exactly how its creator intended it. High above the barren plains of southern Peru, where the desert stretches endlessly under a relentless sun, the earth itself seems to whisper secrets. From the ground, the landscape appears as nothing more than wind-swept dust and rock, but climb into the sky and an astonishing sight unfolds: vast, intricate shapes, spirals, monkeys, hummingbirds with wingspans stretching hundreds of feet, etched into the earth with uncanny precision. These are the Nazca lines, a sprawling gallery of geoglyphs so massive, their full majesty can only be grasped from the air. And that's the first mystery: how did a civilization without flight create art meant to be seen from above? The scale is staggering. Some lines run straight as arrows for miles, defying the natural curves of the terrain. Others form elaborate figures like the colossal spider or the eerie astronaut, a humanoid figure seeming to wave from a hillside. The designs weren't carved, they were made by removing the dark, iron-rich pebbles covering the desert, revealing the lighter sand beneath. Simple in theory, yet the execution is anything but. The Nazca people, who flourished between 200 BC and 600 CE, left no written records explaining their purpose, but the sheer effort involved, shifting thousands of tons of stone by hand, maintaining perfect proportions without modern surveying tools, suggests these weren't idle doodles. So what were they? For theories abound. Some researchers argue the lines formed a celestial calendar, aligning with solstices or constellations to mark agricultural cycles. The hummingbird's beak, for instance, points directly to the rising sun during the summer solstice. Others believe they were sacred pathways, walked during rituals to summon rain in this parched land. Then there's the more controversial idea that they were signals or even landing strips for beings from the sky, but the most compelling clues come from the Nazca's own culture. Pottery shards found nearby depict balloons, leading some to speculate they might have used primitive hot aircraft to view their work. Yet the true genius lies in their method. Without aerial views, the Nazca relied on mathematics and simple tools. By scaling up small models using grids and ropes, they could replicate designs at monumental sizes. Testimony to their skill, many lines remain perfectly straight over miles, deviating less than a meter over their entire length. It's a feat of engineering that rivals the pyramids, and like those ancient wonders, it forces us to reconsider what primitive civilizations were truly capable of. The Nazca lines aren't just art, they're a testament to human ingenuity, a message across time that still leaves us wondering. If they could do this, what else do they know that we've yet to discover? In a dusty corner of the Iraq Museum in Baghdad sits an unassuming clay jar about the size of a fist with a stopper made of asphalt. Inside, a copper cylinder houses an iron rod, simple components that have sparked one of archaeology's most heated debates. Found in 1936 near the ancient city of Decipher, this odd artifact, along with a handful of others like it, has been dubbed the Baghdad Battery. The name alone ignites the imagination. Could these jars, dating back over 2,000 years to the Parthian or Sasanian eras, really be evidence of ancient electrical technology? The theory is tantalizing. Fill the jar with an acidic liquid like vinegar or grape juice, and the chemical reaction between the copper and iron could generate a small electrical charge, roughly 1 volt, enough to produce a faint tingle. Proponents argue these devices might have been used for electroplating, coating objects with thin layers of gold or silver by passing current through a solution. Some even point to gilded artifacts from the same period, suggesting their craftsmanship aligns with this technique. But here's where the debate catches fire. Skeptics counter that no wires, electrodes, or electroplated objects have ever been found alongside these jars. Without direct evidence, they argue, the battery label might just be wishful thinking. Then there's the alternative explanation: storage. The jar's design closely resembles containers used to hold sacred scrolls, their asphalt seals preserving fragile parchment from humidity. The iron rod, a simple stopper or spindle for winding. It's a practical theory, but it doesn't fully explain the presence of the copper cylinder. Why go to such lengths for a storage vessel? Perhaps the most intriguing clue comes from ancient texts. Roman authors like Pliny the Elder describe the use of electric fish to numb pain, proof that early civilizations were aware of electricity's effects, even if they didn't understand its mechanics. Could the Baghdad Battery represent a lost thread of experimentation, a fleeting grasp of principles later forgotten? Or is it merely a case of modern minds projecting our knowledge onto the past? The truth may never be settled, but the Baghdad Battery forces us to ask a bigger question. How much of ancient ingenuity have we underestimated? Whether it's a misunderstood storage jar or a glimpse of forgotten science, this humble artifact reminds us that history's most ordinary objects can hide extraordinary secrets. In the dense jungles of Costa Rica's Diquis Delta, workers clearing land for banana plantations in the 1930s stumbled upon something utterly inexplicable: dozens of massive stone spheres, some as small as a baseball, others towering taller than a man, each one unnervingly, impossibly perfect. Carved from volcanic rock, these orbs, known as the Los Bolas or stone spheres of Costa Rica, are so precisely round they deviate by less than 2 centimeters in diameter. That's smoother than most machine-cut marbles today, yet these were crafted over 1,000 years ago by the pre-Columbian Diquis people, a civilization with no written language, no metal tools, and no known method for achieving such geometric perfection. So how did they do it? Archaeologists have pieced together clues from fragments of unfinished spheres scattered nearby. The process likely began with fire, heating the hard granodiorite boulders, then cooling them rapidly with water to crack off rough edges. From there, artisans would have painstakingly shaped them using smaller stones as hammers, grinding and polishing over generations. The real shock: many spheres were transported miles from their quarries through rugged terrain, some weighing over 16 tons. Without wheels or pack animals, the feat defies logic, but the bigger mystery is why. Some spheres align in straight lines or clusters, leading researchers to theorize they served as astronomical markers, tracking solstices or celestial events. Others sit near burial sites, hinting at spiritual significance, perhaps representing celestial bodies or serving as guardians for the dead. Local legends whisper that the spheres were gifts from gods who hurled them like celestial dice to shape the land. Modern imaging has even revealed hidden patterns beneath the surface, suggesting they might have been painted or decorated, transforming them from mere stones into sacred objects. Then there's the eerie uniformity. Despite being found across hundreds of miles, the spheres share uncanny similarities in size and craftsmanship, as if following a forgotten blueprint. Were they territorial markers for a vast, organized society, a communal project to unite distant villages, or could they be remnants of a lost technology, a method of precision stonework that vanished with their makers? The Decipher left no answers, only these silent orbs, their surfaces worn smooth by centuries of rain and wind, their secrets locked inside. What lingers most is the haunting simplicity of their perfection. In a world without rulers or calculators, these artisans achieved near-flawless symmetry, a testament to patience and skill we're only beginning to fathom. The stone spheres of Costa Rica aren't just artifacts, they're a silent challenge from the past, daring us to unravel how and why an ancient people turned mountains into geometry. And that might be the most unsettling truth of all. Some puzzles refuse to yield their answers. For centuries, the Great Pyramid of Giza has stood as the ultimate symbol of ancient engineering, its massive limestone blocks fitting together with such precision that not even a blade can slide between them. Yet despite all we think we know about this wonder of the ancient world, there's one truth that keeps archaeologists awake at night. We've barely scratched the surface. In 2017, a team of scientists made an announcement that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community using cutting-edge muon tomography, a technology that essentially X-rays stone with cosmic rays. They discovered a massive, previously unknown void deep inside the pyramid. Dubbed the Big Void, this hidden chamber stretches nearly 100 feet long, lying just above the Grand Gallery. And here's the twist: it's completely inaccessible, sealed off by thick layers of limestone with no visible passages leading in or out. So what's inside? Theories range from the practical to the fantastical. Some researchers believe it could be a structural feature, a deliberate hollow space designed to relieve pressure on the lower chambers, a clever trick by builders who understood physics centuries before Newton. Others speculate it might be a hidden repository, perhaps even holding the original burial goods of Pharaoh Khufu, undisturbed for 4,500 years. Then there are the wilder ideas: lost papyri detailing construction secrets, ceremonial objects too sacred to be placed in the known chambers, or even evidence of tools and technologies far more advanced than we've credited the ancient Egyptians with possessing. But the real puzzle isn't just the void's content, it's how it remained hidden for so long. Muon tomography works by detecting subatomic particles that penetrate stone, revealing density differences. Previous scans in the 1960s and 80s missed it entirely, proving just how elusive this chamber really is. Even now, with the void confirmed, no one's sure how to reach it without damaging the pyramid's delicate structure. Drilling risks destabilizing millennia-old masonry, while robotic explorers would face narrow, labyrinthine passages never meant for human or mechanical intrusion. The implications are staggering. If the Big Void does contain artifacts or inscriptions, they could rewrite our understanding of pyramid construction. Imagine stumbling upon a builder's diary or a diagram explaining how those multi-ton blocks were lifted into place. Or perhaps the void serves a ceremonial purpose, aligned with celestial events we haven't yet decoded. The pyramid's air shafts, after all, point directly to specific stars. What if this hidden space does too? Yet for all the excitement, there's a haunting question lurking beneath the speculation. Why would the pyramid's architects go to such lengths to conceal a chamber in the first place? Secret knowledge, a final safeguard for the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife? or something even modern science hasn't considered until we find a way inside. If we ever do, the Big Void remains a tantalizing blank space in humanity's oldest masterpiece, a silent challenge from the past daring us to dig deeper. And that's the thrill of archaeology. Sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't what we find, but what we realize we've yet to uncover. High in the Andes, overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, stands a fortress that defies logic. Sacsayhuaman. Its walls, built from gargantuan blocks of limestone, some weighing over 100 tons, fit together with a precision that would challenge modern stonemasons. Run your hand along the seams and you'll find no gaps, no mortar, just stone pressed against stone so perfectly that not even a razor blade can slip between them. The curves and angles interlock like a three-dimensional puzzle, each piece uniquely shaped to cradle its neighbors, creating a structure so sturdy it has withstood centuries of earthquakes that flattened modern buildings below. How did the Inca achieve such perfection without iron tools, wheels, or even a written language to blueprint their designs? The mainstream theory points to meticulous craftsmanship. Artisans likely used harder stones to pound and grind each block into shape, then sanded them with abrasive paste until the surfaces matched flawlessly. Some researchers suggest they employed a technique called ashlar masonry, where stones were trial-fitted, adjusted, and refitted repeatedly, a process requiring inhuman patience. But the real genius lies in the wall's seismic resistance. The irregular shapes and slight inward tilt distribute earthquake forces, causing the entire structure to shift and settle without collapsing. It's engineering that rivals today's anti-seismic designs, all accomplished with rudimentary tools. Then there are the myths. Spanish chroniclers, awestruck by Sacsayhuaman's scale, wrote that giants must have built it. Local legends speak of a magical plant that could soften stone, allowing workers to mold blocks like clay. Even more tantalizing are the theories of lost technologies, ancient tools, or knowledge that might explain how these stones were cut, transported uphill from quarries miles away, and positioned with such exactitude. Some point to drill holes and precise incisions in unfinished blocks, suggesting methods far beyond hammer stones. But perhaps the most compelling mystery is the purpose of these walls. While Spanish invaders assumed it was a fortress, its zigzagging layout mirrors the teeth of a puma, a sacred animal in Inca cosmology. The name Sacsayhuaman itself translates roughly to satisfied falcon, hinting at celestial symbolism. Recent excavations have uncovered tunnels, altars, and a massive circular plaza, suggesting it was less a military stronghold and more a ceremonial site, possibly aligned with solstice events. What lingers isn't just the how, but the why. Why devote generations to such painstaking construction? The answer might lie in the Inca worldview, where architecture was a dialogue with the divine. These walls weren't just barriers, they were prayers in stone, a testament to humanity's ability to harness the earth itself in reverence. And that's the enduring power of Sacsayhuaman. It forces us to confront not just ancient skill, but ancient intention. In these silent, seamless walls, the past whispers a challenge to see history not as a series of crude steps toward modernity, but as moments where brilliance flickered, unbounded by the tools of its time. In the hushed archives of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, among centuries-old manuscripts and imperial decrees, lies a sheepskin parchment that shouldn't exist. Drawn in 1513 by Ottoman Admiral Piri Reis, this map, a fragment of a larger world chart, shows coastlines with eerie accuracy from the Amazon to the western bulge of Africa. But it's the southern edge that sends chills down spines, a landmass unmistakably resembling Antarctica, drawn with startling detail, 300 years before the frozen continent was officially discovered. And here's the twist: it's depicted without ice. The implications are staggering. Modern seismic surveys reveal Antarctica's true topography beneath its glacial shell, and the Piri Rise map's rendering of mountain ranges and rivers aligns uncannily with these hidden features. But that's impossible unless the mapmakers had access to knowledge of the continent as it looked millions of years ago before the ice caps formed. So how did a 16th century navigator, working with the limited tools of his time, record a landscape no human eye had seen for epochs? Rise himself provides a clue in marginal notes, stating he compiled the map from older sources, including charts dating back to Alexander the Great's era. Some researchers believe these lost references might trace back to the legendary Library of Alexandria, where ancient scholars possibly preserved far older geographical records. Others go further, suggesting the map hints at a pre-glacial civilization advanced enough to survey the planet with precision, perhaps the mythical Atlanteans or a seafaring culture now lost to time. Then there's the precision problem. The map's longitudinal coordinates are suspiciously accurate for an era when calculating longitude at sea was still a scientific nightmare. Errors creep in only where Rise likely patched together mismatched sources, like stretching South America too far east, but the core geometry's flawless. This has led to fringe theories involving extraterrestrial cartographers or a forgotten golden age of human exploration, wiped clean by some cataclysm. Skeptics counter that the Antarctica shape could be a misdrawn South America or artistic license blending rumor and myth. Yet the coastline's unique indentations like the Weddell Sea's curve are hard to dismiss as coincidence. Even more puzzling are the map's depictions of wildlife, including creatures resembling llamas and elephants in regions where such animals never roamed. Were these purely imaginative or echoes of an older mapmaker's notes, jumbled across millennia? What makes the Piri Rise map truly unsettling isn't just its existence, it's the questions it forces us to confront. If ancient cultures did possess knowledge this advanced, what happened to it? Was it buried in some as yet undiscovered ruin or deliberately destroyed? And most haunting of all, how many other secrets might still be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right pair of eyes to see them anew? Buried beneath a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey, a discovery so radical emerged that it shattered everything archaeologists thought they knew about the dawn of civilization. Göbekli Tepe, a sprawling complex of massive stone pillars arranged in circular formations, isn't just old, it's impossibly old. Carbon dating places its construction at around 9,600 BCE, a staggering 7 millennia before the Great Pyramid of Giza and 6,000 years before the invention of writing. But here's the twist: this wasn't built by farmers, merchants, or a settled society. The hands that carved these stones belonged to hunter-gatherers, people who supposedly lacked the organization, tools, or motivation to create something so monumental. Walking among the pillars, it's hard not to feel the weight of that paradox. Each limestone column towers up to 18 feet tall, many weighing over 10 tons, their surfaces etched with intricate reliefs of scorpions, lions, and vultures in mid-hunt. Some pillars are shaped like human figures, with arms carved in relief and belts encircling their waists, perhaps ancient deities or ancestral spirits watching over the site. The precision is jaw-dropping. Without metal tools, how did they quarry and transport these stones from nearby bedrock? Without wheels or beasts of burden, how did they erect them in perfect alignment? The layout only deepens the mystery. Göbekli Tepe isn't a single structure but a series of at least 20 circular enclosures, each buried deliberately over time, as if ritualistically sealed. This wasn't a haphazard project, it was a recurring, generations-long effort, and that's the real shock. This site predates agriculture by centuries. Conventional wisdom insists that complex societies only emerged after farming provided surplus food, freeing people from constant foraging to specialize in crafts, religion, or leadership. But Göbekli Tepe flips that script. Here, hunter-gatherers gathered not for survival but for something grander. So what compelled them? One theory suggests the site was a spiritual nexus, a pilgrimage destination where nomadic groups converged for ceremonies, exchanging knowledge and forging alliances. The animal carvings might represent totems or constellations, mapping a forgotten cosmology. Another idea is even more provocative, that gatherings like these sparked agriculture, as feasts near the temple required cultivating wild grains, accidentally setting humanity on the path to farming. Supporting this, archaeologists found evidence of early beer brewing nearby, perhaps ritual libations that became a social glue. Then there's the eerie question of abandonment. Around 8000 BC, Göbekli Tepe was carefully buried under thousands of tons of earth, preserved like a time capsule. Was it a sacred act, a way to retire the site without desecration? Or did the very agriculture it might have inspired render its purpose obsolete? The answers lie tangled in the soil, but one truth is inescapable. Our ancestors were far more capable and more visionary than we ever imagined. Göbekli Tepe doesn't just challenge timelines, it forces us to rethink what drives human ingenuity. Maybe civilization didn't emerge from practicality, but from something deeper, a shared longing to reach beyond mere survival and touch the divine. And if that's the case, what other surprises might still be waiting beneath the earth? Beneath the rolling hills of Zhejiang province in China, hidden for centuries beneath layers of soil and silence, lies an underground labyrinth that defies explanation, the Longyu Caves. Discovered by accident in 1992 when a local farmer drained a small pond, these caverns aren't natural formations. They're man-made, carved by hand from solid sandstone over 2,000 years ago, yet their existence isn't recorded in a single historical text. Step inside and the scale alone is staggering. 24 caves spread across 30,000 square meters, some reaching heights of nearly 100 feet, their ceilings supported by colossal pillars left standing like silent sentinels. But it's the walls that stop you cold, every inch meticulously chiseled with parallel grooves, a swirling, rhythmic pattern of markings that ripple across stone like waves frozen in time. Who built this and why? The absence of records is deafening. China's dynastic histories document everything from peasant uprisings to porcelain designs, yet these caves, a project that would have required removing 1 million cubic meters of stone, merit not a single mention. The engineering is equally baffling. Each cavern is a near-perfect rectangle with walls so precisely angled and smoothed, they suggest a level of geometric planning that rivals modern laser-guided construction. Even more puzzling, the chisel marks are uniform, as if produced by tools of uncanny consistency, yet no metal instruments from that era have been found nearby. Then there's the acoustics. Stand in the center of certain chambers, and your voice echoes with unnatural clarity, a phenomenon that hints at deliberate sonic design. Were these spaces used for rituals, their walls vibrating with chants or drumbeats? Or could the grooves themselves serve some forgotten function, channeling water, amplifying sound, or even capturing light in patterns we no longer understand? Local folklore speaks of emperors hiding treasures here, or of mythical beings tunneling through the earth, but the truth feels stranger than myth. Perhaps the most haunting clue lies in the pillars. Their placement isn't random. They mirror the support structures of ancient wooden buildings above ground, as if the caves were an inverted replica of a lost city. Some researchers speculate they were quarries mined for stone to build nearby settlements, but why decorate a utilitarian space with such artistry? Others propose they were secret bunkers, hidden temples, or even astronomical observatories, their walls aligned with constellations. But without inscriptions or artifacts, the caves guard their secrets fiercely. What lingers isn't just the mystery of their purpose, but the sheer audacity of their creation. Imagine teams of workers toiling in flickering torchlight, carving ton after ton of rock with nothing but bronze chisels and sheer determination. No pulleys, no scaffolding, just human hands and relentless patience. The Longyu Caves aren't just a monument, they're a question carved in stone, challenging our assumptions about ancient labor, technology, and the quiet gaps in history's record. And until someone deciphers those ghostly grooves, they'll remain one of archaeology's most eloquent silences. In the remote Bayan-Ha Mountains of China, a discovery emerged in 1938 that would ignite one of archaeology's most enduring controversies, the Dropa stones. According to accounts by Chinese archaeologist Kai Pu-Te, a team stumbled upon a series of caves containing neat rows of ancient graves. The skeletons were small, no more than 4 feet tall, with abnormally large skulls. But it was what lay beside them that sent whispers of the extraordinary through academic circles. Hundreds of stone discs, each roughly the size of a vinyl record, with a hole in the center and spiral grooves radiating outward like phonograph records. Initial estimates placed their age at 12,000 years, but the real shock came when researchers claimed the grooves weren't decorative. They were microscopic hieroglyphs, a script so tiny it required magnification to read. And the alleged translation, a harrowing account of a spacecraft crash landing in the mountains, its survivors, the Dropa people stranded on Earth. The story spiraled from there. Soviet linguists in the 1960s supposedly deciphered more texts, revealing the Dropa's despair as they struggled to adapt to Earth's environment, their pleas for help etched into stone. Some accounts even claimed genetic testing of the skeletons revealed non-human traits, fueling speculation they were extraterrestrials. But here's where the plot thickens. Virtually every piece of physical evidence, the discs, the skeletons, the original excavation notes, has vanished. No reputable institution has them on display, and the only known photographs are grainy, unverified images from decades-old tabloids. So where does the truth lie? Mainstream archaeologists dismiss the Dropa stones as an elaborate hoax, pointing to inconsistencies in the timeline. Kai Pu-Te's excavation records, if they ever existed, have never been peer-reviewed. The discs described don't match any known Neolithic artifacts from the region, and the translations bear suspicious resemblance to mid-20th century sci-fi tropes. Skeptics argue the entire tale was cobbled together from misidentified burial stones, exaggerated by sensationalists and UFO enthusiasts. Even the name Dropa appears nowhere in Tibetan or Chinese folklore, raising red flags about its authenticity. Yet the mystery refuses to die. Some researchers suggest a kernel of truth might exist, an actual archaeological find later co-opted by conspiracy theorists. The mountains are home to ancient burial sites, and small-statured peoples like the Tsotan have lived in the region for centuries. Could the discs have been ritual objects or astronomical tools misconstrued as alien artifacts? Without the originals, we may never know. What remains is a cautionary tale about how easily archaeology can blur into myth. The Dropa stones, whether fraud or misunderstood relic, force us to confront how desperately we want the past to be stranger than it is. And perhaps that's the real lesson here. Sometimes the most alien thing about history isn't what's buried, it's what we project onto it. In the quiet back room of a Texas museum, encased in glass like a relic from another world, rests an object that shouldn't be, a hammer, its wooden handle partially petrified, its iron head fused seamlessly into a chunk of rock dated at 400 million years old. Known as the London Hammer, this bizarre artifact was discovered in 1936 by hikers near Red Creek in Texas, who stumbled upon it protruding from a broken rock formation. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary tool from the 19th century, the kind you might find in a blacksmith's workshop. But here's the catch: the rock encasing it formed during the Devonian period, a time when ferns were Earth's most advanced plants and vertebrates had barely crawled onto land. So how does a human-made hammer end up entombed in stone older than dinosaurs? The debate hinges on two explosive possibilities. One camp argues this is clear evidence of an advanced human civilization, or perhaps even visitors from beyond Earth existing millions of years before recorded history. The hammer's metallurgy only deepens the intrigue. When analyzed, the iron showed unusual purity, lacking the slag typical of 19th century smelting, and contained traces of chlorine, a composition some researchers claim points to an unknown forging technique. Could this be a remnant of a lost industrial culture, one that flourished and vanished without leaving a trace? Skeptics, however, propose a more mundane explanation. The hammer isn't as ancient as the rock around it. They suggest the artifact might be a miner's tool from the 1800s, dropped or abandoned in a pocket of mineral-rich sediment. Over time, dissolved minerals could have cemented around it, creating the illusion of extreme age. This process, known as concretion, is common. Think of how fossils form, but rarely produces something as visually striking as the London hammer's seamless fusion. Supporting this, some geologists point to inconsistencies in the rock's dating, arguing the Devonian estimate might be skewed by local mineral deposits. Yet the mystery lingers. If the hammer is a recent object, why does its iron composition differ so markedly from known 19th century examples? And why hasn't any other tool been found under similar circumstances? The rock's chemistry remains a puzzle, with some tests even detecting organic material in the handle that appears partially coalified, a process requiring immense time and pressure. The London hammer forces us to confront the gaps in our understanding of both geology and human history. It's either a freakish geological accident or a thunderclap from the distant past, whispering of timelines we've yet to untangle. Until someone can definitively explain how these pieces fit or don't, the hammer will remain a stubborn enigma, challenging us to reconsider what we think we know about time, technology, and the quiet lies the Earth sometimes tells. Beneath the crystal-clear waters off Japan's Yonaguni Island, a series of massive, angular formations rise from the ocean floor like the steps of a submerged colosseum. Discovered in 1986 by a local diver, these structures, collectively called the Yonaguni Monument, have sparked one of archaeology's most heated debates. At first glance, the site looks undeniably man-made. Flat terraces with sharp 90-degree edges, pillar-like formations, and what appears to be a grand staircase ascending toward where the surface would have been millennia ago. The largest structure stretches nearly 500 feet long and rises 80 feet from the seabed. Its sheer face is so geometrically precise, it's hard to believe nature acted alone. But here's where things get complicated. Mainstream geologists argue these formations are textbook examples of sandstone weathering, shaped by tidal forces and seismic activity over thousands of years. The region sits atop active fault lines where shifting tectonic plates could fracture rock into surprisingly regular patterns. They point to similar formations worldwide, like Northern Ireland's Giant's Causeway, where nature carves hexagonal columns so perfect they look chiseled by giants. To them, Yonaguni is just another marvel of natural erosion, a beautiful coincidence, yet the alternative theory refuses to fade. Proponents of the lost civilization hypothesis highlight features that defy easy geological explanation. The monument includes two round holes, each about 2 feet wide, drilled vertically into the rock, a near impossible feat for random erosion. Nearby, a pair of massive megaliths appear strategically placed, their flat surfaces aligned like gateposts. Even more compelling are the carvings resembling a turtle and a human face, their outlines too symmetrical to dismiss as pareidolia. If these markings are intentional, they point to a culture with the tools and vision to shape stone on a monumental scale. Dating the site only deepens the intrigue. Sea levels rose dramatically around 10,000 years ago as the last ice age ended, submerging coastal areas worldwide. Yonaguni's structures now lie submerged under just 16 to 80 feet of water, placing their construction, if human, firmly in the Pleistocene epoch, a time when conventional history insists humans were nomadic hunter-gatherers. Could this be evidence of an advanced Pacific civilization, one that thrived before being swallowed by the sea? Some researchers link it to legends of Mu or Lemuria, mythical continents said to have vanished beneath the waves. Others propose a more grounded theory, an ancient coastal society, their technology lost to rising waters, leaving only these cryptic stones as their epitaph. The truth may lie in the middle. Marine archaeologist Masaki Kimura, who has studied Yonaguni for decades, acknowledges some natural formations but insists others show clear tool marks. He's mapped underwater roads connecting the main structure to smaller platforms, suggesting a deliberate layout. Meanwhile, skeptics like geologist Robert Schoch concede that while the monument itself is likely natural, later human hands might have modified parts of it, turning a geological oddity into a sacred site. What makes Yonaguni so captivating isn't just the question of its origins, it's what the debate reveals about our relationship with the past. We're drawn to these ambiguities, these cracks in history's foundation where imagination rushes in. Whether a masterpiece of nature or a relic of forgotten builders, the monument stands as a silent sentinel, daring us to reconsider how much of humanity's story remains hidden beneath the waves. And perhaps that's the real wonder, not just what we find, but how it makes us question everything we thought we knew. Standing sentinel on the windswept slopes of Easter Island, the Moai statues have long been a symbol of human ambition and mystery. These towering figures, some weighing over 80 tons, were carved from volcanic rock and transported up to 11 miles across rugged terrain, all without wheels, beasts of burden, or modern machinery. For centuries, their movement seemed impossible, sparking wild theories from alien assistance to lost technologies. But recent experiments have uncovered a startling possibility. What if the statues didn't need to be dragged at all? What if they walked? The walking theory, first proposed by archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo, turns conventional wisdom on its head. Instead of brute force dragging, the method long assumed based on Polynesian oral traditions. Their research suggests the Moai may have been rocked side to side, using ropes to walk them upright in a controlled shuffle. In 2012, a team tested this idea on a smaller replica, demonstrating that just 18 people with 3 sturdy ropes could maneuver a multi-ton statue in a swaying forward motion. The experiment wasn't just successful, it was eerily reminiscent of local legends describing the statues moving on their own, but the real revelation lies in the ecological clues. Easter Island wasn't always the barren landscape we see today. When Polynesian settlers arrived around 1200 CE, it was a lush paradise teeming with giant palms. By the time Europeans discovered the island in 1722, those forests were gone, and so were the resources needed to sustain the statue-building culture. The traditional narrative blames the Rapa Nui people for ecological collapse, claiming they recklessly deforested the island to transport Moai. Yet newer evidence paints a more nuanced picture. Pollen studies reveal the forests didn't vanish overnight. They declined gradually, likely due to a mix of human activity and the arrival of invasive rats that devoured tree seeds. The statues themselves may have been part of the solution, not the problem. Some researchers argue the Moai weren't just religious icons but territorial markers, their construction fostering cooperation between clans during times of scarcity. The real tragedy, by the time Europeans arrived, the islanders had already shifted to smaller, more sustainable statue traditions, adapting to their changing world long before outsiders labeled their society a cautionary tale. What lingers isn't just the how of the Moai, but the why. These statues weren't vanity projects, they were anchors of identity, erected by a people navigating isolation and environmental stress. Their silent faces don't just guard the past, they whisper a lesson about resilience in the face of limits. And that's the paradox of Easter Island, a civilization once branded as self-destructive, might actually be one of history's most ingenious survivors. The Shroud of Turin isn't just a piece of ancient fabric. It's a riddle wrapped in linen, a mystery that sparked debates, devotions, and scientific showdowns for centuries. This 14-foot-long cloth, bearing the faint but unmistakable imprint of a crucified man, has been venerated by millions as the actual burial shroud of Jesus Christ. To believers, it's a sacred relic, a tangible connection to the divine. To skeptics, it's an elaborate medieval forgery. But here's where things get complicated. Science hasn't been able to settle the argument. Not even close. First, let's talk about that image. The figure on the shroud isn't painted or dyed. It's a subtle, straw-colored discoloration of the linen fibers themselves, almost like a photographic negative. Every detail is eerily precise. The wounds match biblical accounts of crucifixion, with lacerations from scourging, a puncture in the side consistent with a Roman spear, and even what appear to be nail marks through the wrists and feet. Forensic experts have noted how the bloodstains show correct fluid dynamics, pooling in ways that would only happen on a real body. Even the pollen grains trapped in the fibers hail from plants native to Jerusalem, adding another layer of intrigue. Then came the bombshell: carbon dating. In 1988, 3 independent labs tested small samples of the shroud, concluding it dated between 1260 and 1390, squarely in the Middle Ages. Case closed. Not so fast. Critics immediately pointed out flaws in the testing. The sample came from a corner that might have been repaired or contaminated over centuries of handling. Later studies revealed the shroud's unique chemical composition: cotton fibers mixed with linen and traces of vanillin, a compound that degrades over time, suggesting it could be far older. Some researchers even proposed the image was created by a burst of radiant energy, like the flash of a resurrection, though that remains firmly in the realm of speculation. The shroud's enigma only deepens when you examine how it resists replication. Modern scientists have tried and failed to recreate its exact properties using medieval techniques. Painting can't explain the 3-dimensional data encoded in the image shading. Heat transfers or chemical reactions might come close, but no method perfectly duplicates the shroud's ghostly, superficial staining, which penetrates only the topmost fibers. Even Leonardo da Vinci, often absurdly credited as the forger, lacked the technology to achieve such an effect. What lingers isn't just the question of authenticity, but the shroud's uncanny power to straddle faith and science. It's a mirror reflecting what we're willing to believe and how fiercely we cling to certainty in the face of the unexplained. Whether divine artifact or inexplicable medieval marvel, the Shroud of Turin remains a puzzle that challenges not just history, but the very nature of evidence itself. And perhaps that's why it endures, not as proof, but as a provocation, daring us to sit with the unknown. In the summer of 2011, a team of Swedish treasure hunters scanning the Baltic seafloor with sonar stumbled upon something that defied logic: a massive, disc-shaped object resting nearly 300 feet below the surface. The sonar image showed a near-perfect circle measuring roughly 200 feet across, with what appeared to be a trailing skid mark stretching over a quarter-mile behind it, as if the object had crash-landed into the seabed. But the strangest detail: a series of smaller, geometric structures perched atop the main formation, resembling staircases or pillars. Media outlets quickly dubbed it the Baltic Sea Anomaly, with headlines screaming "UFO found." And the theories only spiraled from there. Diving expeditions to the site deepened the mystery. Crews reported bizarre equipment malfunctions, compasses spinning wildly, cameras glitching, and electronic devices shutting off entirely as they approached the object. Some divers even claimed their satellite phones cut out within a specific radius, as if the anomaly emitted some kind of interference. These reports fueled speculation of extraterrestrial origins, with enthusiasts pointing to the object's uncanny resemblance to the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. But scientists weren't so quick to embrace the alien hypothesis. Geologists proposed a more grounded explanation: a glacial erratic, a boulder deposited by retreating ice sheets during the last ice age, roughly 14,000 years ago. Such formations can take on odd shapes due to uneven erosion, and the Baltic Sea is littered with them. But skeptics of this theory highlight strange inconsistencies. The anomaly's surface, when sampled, contained metals like limonite and goethite, unusual for natural rock formations, and its symmetry seems too precise for random geological processes. Even more puzzling, sonar scans revealed right angles and what look like constructed walls beneath layers of sediment, features rarely seen in nature. Then there's the historical angle. The Baltic region has been a crossroads of human activity for millennia, from Viking traders to World War II naval operations. Could this be a sunken Nazi anti-submarine device lost to history, or the remains of a submerged Mesolithic settlement now obscured by silt and time? Proponents of the ancient structure theory point to nearby underwater ruins like the mythic city of Voynich, said to have vanished beneath the waves. But without definitive artifacts or carvings, the anomaly refuses to give up its secrets. What lingers isn't just the question of what the object is, but why it affects technology so anomalously. Natural formations don't typically disrupt electronics unless they contain concentrated minerals with magnetic properties. Yet no known mineral deposit explains the scale or consistency of the interference reported. Until someone recovers a conclusive sample or maps the structure in its entirety, the Baltic Sea anomaly remains a Rorschach test for the imagination. Is it a relic of ancient builders, a glacial quirk, or something even science can't yet name? For now, the murky depths keep their silence and the world keeps guessing. Beneath a quiet neighborhood park in Scotland lies a relic so enigmatic that authorities buried it to save it from ruin: the Cochno Stone. Unearthed in 1887 by archaeologist James Harvey, this massive sandstone slab stretches over 40 feet long and is covered in swirling, intricate carvings that have baffled researchers for over a century. From spirals and concentric circles to mysterious cup and ring marks, the stone's surface is a labyrinth of symbols etched with deliberate precision. But here's what's truly astonishing: these carvings aren't random. They're part of a vast prehistoric tradition found across Europe, yet the Cochno stone stands out as one of the most elaborate examples ever discovered. Dating back around 5,000 years, the stone's purpose remains hotly debated. Some scholars believe it's a celestial map, its swirling patterns mirroring the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. The concentric circles could represent solstice alignments, while the interconnected grooves might chart ancient trade routes or pilgrimage paths. Others argue it was a sacred site for rituals, its carvings acting as conduits for spiritual energy. There's even a theory that the markings served as a prehistoric touchstone, where people pressed their hands into the grooves to connect with ancestors or deities. The stone's location overlooking the fertile Clyde Valley suggests it might have been a gathering place for seasonal ceremonies, a crossroads between the earthly and the divine. But the mystery took a darker turn in the 1960s. After decades of exposure to weathering and vandalism, archaeologists made a radical decision. They reburied the stone to protect it. For 50 years, it lay hidden beneath layers of soil, its secrets locked away until a 2016 excavation brought it back into the light. Modern scanning technology revealed previously unseen details, faint carvings that earlier surveys had missed, including footprints and a star-like pattern that some linked to Orion's belt. The stone's sheer scale and complexity hint at a sophistication we rarely attribute to Neolithic cultures. How did they create such precise designs without metal tools? And why did communities across thousands of miles share this symbolic language? Perhaps the most haunting question isn't just what the Cochno stone meant to its creators, but why they chose this particular rock. The sandstone's natural undulations seem to interact with the carvings, as if the artists worked in harmony with the stone's own voice. Some grooves align with fissures in the rock, suggesting the makers saw significance in its natural formations, a blend of human intention and earthly artistry. Today, the Kochno stone sits shielded beneath a protective mesh, a temporary measure until scholars decide its fate. But its legacy endures as a testament to humanity's timeless urge to leave marks on the world, to encode meaning into stone. Whether map, altar, or something beyond our modern understanding, it whispers a challenge across millennia. Some codes aren't meant to be cracked, only pondered. And in that pondering, we come face to face with the unfathomable creativity of those who walked before us. Rising from the red clay of rural Georgia like a monument from a forgotten prophecy, the Georgia Guidestones were anything but ordinary. Erected in 1980 under mysterious circumstances, these 20-foot-tall granite slabs bore 10 commandments for humanity, not in ancient script, but in 8 modern languages from English to Swahili. Their message was stark: maintain world population under 500 million, balance reproduction with nature, and unite humanity under a new global language. But the real shock wasn't just the content, it was the anonymity. The stones were commissioned by a man using the pseudonym R.C. Christian, who claimed to represent a small group of Americans seeking to leave guidance for a post-apocalyptic future. The stonemason who built them later recalled Christian arriving with detailed blueprints and cash payment, vanishing as quietly as he appeared. From the beginning, the Guidestones were a lightning rod for controversy. Some saw them as a benign philosophical exercise, a thought experiment carved in stone. Others detected something darker, a blueprint for global depopulation etched by shadowy elites. The stone's alignment with celestial events only fueled speculation. The central pillar featured a hole drilled to frame the North Star, while slots in the capstone marked the sun's solstice and equinox positions. To conspiracy theorists, this wasn't just astronomy, it was occult symbolism, a silent nod to esoteric traditions. Even the choice of granite seemed deliberate, quarried from the same region as the stones at Stonehenge, as if linking modern mystery to ancient enigma. Then, in 2022, the unthinkable happened. An explosion rocked the site at dawn, toppling one of the monoliths. By noon, authorities had demolished the rest, citing safety concerns. The timing was suspicious, just as online sleuths were gaining traction tracing R.C. Christian to old eugenics movements. Official reports blamed vandals, but the clean, precise nature of the destruction along with the lack of arrests left many questioning the narrative. Was this an act of vigilante justice against perceived tyranny, or a cover-up to erase uncomfortable truths? What lingers isn't just the mystery of the Guidestones' origins, but their eerie resonance with modern anxieties. In an age of climate crisis and geopolitical fracture, their commandments feel less like fringe ideology and more like a grim mirror held up to civilization's fragility. Were they a warning, a blueprint, or merely the pet project of a reclusive idealist? The stones are gone now, but their ghost lingers a reminder that sometimes the most unsettling messages aren't buried in the distant past, but left in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be understood. Buried beneath the rolling plains of Cappadocia in Turkey lies a labyrinth so vast it could conceal an entire civilization. The Derinkuyu underground city isn't just a few tunnels or storage chambers, it's an 18-story deep metropolis carved painstakingly into volcanic rock, with space for 20,000 people to live, worship, and even farm, hidden from the world above. Discovered in 1963 by a local homeowner who knocked down a wall in his basement only to find a mysterious passage, this subterranean marvel rewrites what we thought possible for ancient engineering. Step inside and the sophistication is staggering. Narrow corridors twist between living quarters, stables, wine presses, and chapels, all connected by a network of staircases and ventilation shafts so precisely engineered. fresh air circulates effortlessly even at the lowest levels. But the real genius lies in the defenses. Massive stone doors, each weighing up to half a ton, could be rolled shut to seal off entire sections in case of invasion. These weren't just barriers, they were part of a calculated security system, with small holes drilled above doorways to allow defenders to pour boiling oil or water on attackers. Even the water supply was ingeniously protected. Hundreds of feet below ground, wells tapped into natural aquifers, ensuring access even during prolonged sieges. How did they build this? The soft volcanic rock of Cappadocia, known as tuff, made excavation possible with simple bronze and iron tools, but the planning involved goes far beyond brute force. Vertical chimneys doubled as communication shafts, allowing voices to carry between levels, while strategically placed air vents prevented carbon dioxide buildup from torches and breath. The city's layout wasn't random, it mirrored the needs of a community under threat, with communal kitchens, wineries, and even a school, all designed to sustain life for months, if not years, beneath the surface. Who were they hiding from? Historians believe Derinkuyu and its sister cities, there are over 200 in the region, were built by the Phrygians around the 8th century BC, then expanded by early Christians fleeing Roman persecution. The tunnels even connect to other underground cities miles away, suggesting a coordinated network of refuge, but the sheer scale hints at something older. Some scholars argue parts of Derinkuyu predate written history, possibly built by the Hittites 2,000 years earlier, their purpose lost to time. What lingers isn't just the awe of standing in these ancient halls, but the unsettling question they pose: what kind of world drives people to carve their lives so deeply into the earth? The answer may lie in Cappadocia's brutal history, a crossroads ravaged by empires and invaders. Derinkuyu isn't just a city, it's a monument to resilience, a reminder that survival sometimes means disappearing into the dark. And with nearly 90% of the complex still unexplored, who knows what other secrets might be waiting silently beneath our feet? Scattered across the highlands of Laos like forgotten giants' tableware, thousands of stone jars rise from the earth in silent witness to a mystery that has endured for millennia. The Plain of Jars, a haunting landscape of over 90 sites, features massive carved vessels, some towering over 9 feet tall and weighing several tons, their origins lost to time. These aren't just random boulders. Each jar was painstakingly hollowed from sandstone or granite, their interiors smoothed with precision, their rims often adorned with carved rings or humanoid figures peering out from the stone. But here's what chills archaeologists. Despite their clear connection to burial rituals, the jars stand eerily empty. Where are the bones, the tools, the traces of those who crafted them? The prevailing theory links the jars to an ancient funeral practice. Excavations have uncovered fragments of human remains, ceramic grave goods, and even bronze jewelry nestled in the soil around them, suggesting they once held the dead, possibly as part of a sky burial tradition, where bodies were placed in the jars to decompose before bones were later relocated. But the evidence is maddeningly sparse. Unlike Egypt's tomb-laden pyramids or Peru's mummy bundles, the Plain of Jars offers no grand necropolis, no treasure-laden chambers. Instead, it's as if the civilization behind them vanished, taking their secrets with them. Dating only deepens the puzzle. Recent studies suggest the jars were placed between 500 BC and 500 CE, but their creators left almost no other traces, no settlements, no written records, not even the quarries where these colossal vessels were carved. How did they transport these multi-ton jars across rugged terrain without wheels or draft animals? Some researchers propose log rolling techniques or river transport during monsoon seasons, but no tools or rope fragments have been found to confirm this. The jars' sheer number and size imply a highly organized society, yet their cultural footprint is whisper-thin. Then there's the unexploded ordnance. During the Vietnam War, American bombers carpeted the region with cluster munitions, leaving the plains littered with deadly remnants. To this day, large sections remain inaccessible, their secrets locked behind fences adorned with skull and crossbones warnings. It's a cruel irony. The very war that ravaged Laos also preserved its mysteries, leaving archaeologists to wonder what clues might lie in the untouched earth. Local legends offer poetic explanations. The jars, some say, were crafted by giants to brew rice wine for a colossal victory feast. Others whisper of an ancient king who commanded their creation to store monsoon rainwater for his armies. But the most haunting theory comes from the jars themselves. Their placement isn't random. Some align with mountain passes or natural landmarks, hinting at a ritual geography, a map of the sacred etched into the land. What lingers isn't just the question of who made them, but why they chose such fleeting memorials. Unlike the pyramids or the Taj Mahal, these jars weren't built to glorify rulers or outlast empires. They're humble, almost anonymous, their purpose as ephemeral as the lives they once honored. And perhaps that's the lesson of the Plain of Jars. Some histories aren't meant to be monumental, only whispered a reminder that even the grandest stones can guard the quietest truths. Deep in the heart of Romania, buried beneath layers of earth and skepticism, lies a discovery that could rewrite the very origins of human civilization: the Tartaria tablets. Unearthed in 1961 near the village of Tartaria, these small clay discs bear strange symbols, a series of intricate markings that some researchers believe represent the world's oldest known writing system. If authentic, they would predate Mesopotamian cuneiform by hundreds, if not thousands of years, a claim so radical it sends shockwaves through the foundations of archaeology. But here's where the controversy ignites. Mainstream scholars dismiss the tablets as clumsy forgeries, a hoax planted to upend historical consensus. Yet for those who dare to question, the Tartaria tablets whisper a tantalizing possibility. What if we've been wrong about where and when humanity first put pen to clay? The symbols themselves are the crux of the debate. Unlike the structured, repetitive strokes of early Sumerian script, the Tartaria markings are more abstract, a mix of spirals, crosses, and stylized animal figures that seem to dance across the clay's surface. Proponents of their authenticity argue these aren't random scratches but a deliberate system, possibly a form of proto-writing used for rituals or record-keeping. Some even see parallels with the Vinci symbols, a set of Neolithic markings found across southeastern Europe, suggesting a widespread, sophisticated communication network long before the rise of Mesopotamia. But skeptics pounce on the inconsistencies. The tablets were discovered alongside bones and artifacts from multiple time periods, making their exact age difficult to pin down. Worse, their excavation records were poorly documented, leaving room for doubt about their original context, yet the plot thickens when you examine the dating. Radiocarbon tests on nearby organic materials suggest the site could be as old as 5,300 BC, centuries older than the earliest confirmed writing. If the tablets belong to this layer, they force a seismic shift in our understanding of cultural development. How could a farming society in the Balkans have developed writing independently and so early while the so-called cradles of civilization were still in their infancy? Critics counter that the symbols might be decorative or ritualistic, not true writing. Without a decipherable message or repeated phonetic patterns, they argue, the tablets are more art than alphabet. Then there's the political angle. The Tartaria tablets emerged during Cold War-era Romania, a time when nationalist archaeologists were eager to prove their region's historical significance. Could the tablets have been enhanced to serve a narrative? It wouldn't be the first time archaeology was weaponized for ideology, but believers point to microscopic analysis showing no signs of modern tool marks, and the clay's mineral composition matches local sources. The truth may lie somewhere in between: a genuine ancient artifact misinterpreted, or a fragment of a larger, lost system we're only beginning to glimpse. What makes the Tartaria tablets so haunting isn't just the question of their authenticity, but what they represent: a crack in the wall of orthodox history. If even one of these clay discs is genuine, it unravels the tidy timeline of human progress, suggesting that innovation didn't bloom in a single river valley but flickered to life in scattered pockets, some brilliant, some forgotten. Until new evidence emerges, the tablets remain a Rorschach test for archaeologists, a fraud to some, a Rosetta Stone to others, and to the rest of us, a reminder that the past is far stranger and more stubborn than we ever imagined. Buried alongside mastodon bones in a sandbank near the Romanian town of Aiud, a strange wedge-shaped object lay hidden for millennia, until a routine excavation in 1974 brought it to light. At first glance, the Aiud artifact didn't seem extraordinary, a pitted, oxidized lump roughly 8 inches long. But when researchers brushed away the grime, they were stunned to discover it was made almost entirely of aluminum, a metal that wasn't smelted until the 19th century. Here's the catch: the layer where it was found dated back to the Pleistocene epoch, a staggering 2 million years ago. So how does a man-made alloy end up in strata older than humanity itself? The artifact's composition only deepens the puzzle. Lab tests revealed a mix of aluminum, copper, zinc, and trace metals, forming an alloy similar to those used in modern aircraft construction. The thick layer of oxide coating the surface suggested extreme age, yet aluminum doesn't occur naturally in pure form. To produce it, you'd need electrolysis, a process requiring electricity and industrial-scale refining. If this object is genuine, it implies the existence of a prehistoric civilization with technology rivaling our own, a notion so radical it borders on heresy in conventional archaeology. Skeptics argue the artifact must be a misplaced piece of machinery, perhaps a digging tool or excavator part that fell into older sediment. After all, the site was near a 20th century industrial area where aluminum debris wouldn't be unusual. But here's the problem: the layer where it was found hadn't been disturbed. The surrounding mastodon bones showed no signs of modern contamination, and the artifact's oxide layer matched the expected weathering for something buried millions of years. Even stranger, its wedge shape and symmetrical grooves don't resemble any known industrial tool. Some researchers propose it could be part of an ancient vehicle's landing gear or a mining implement, but that only raises more questions than answers. Then there's the fringe theory that refuses to die. Could the Aiud artifact be a relic of extraterrestrial visitors? Proponents point to its aerodynamic design and advanced alloy as evidence of non-human engineering, suggesting it might be a fragment of a crashed spacecraft or lost technology from a forgotten earthly civilization. While mainstream science dismisses this as pseudoscience, the artifact's resistance to easy classification keeps the debate alive. What makes the Aiud artifact so compelling isn't just its paradoxical presence, it's what it reveals about our relationship with the unknown. Sometimes the past doesn't fit neatly into textbooks, whether a misplaced tractor part or a whisper from a lost world. This unassuming wedge forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth. History might be far stranger and far less complete than we've been taught. And until someone can definitively explain how it got there, the artifact will remain a silent affront to everything we think we know. In a quiet corner of Peru, nestled among the dusty shelves of a small museum, lies a collection of stones that seem to defy the very fabric of history, the Ica stones. These andesite rocks, some as large as watermelons, are etched with scenes so bizarre they'd feel at home in a science fiction novel. Humans battling tyrannosaurs, surgeons performing cesarean sections with scalpels, astronomers peering through telescopes at distant galaxies. The implications are staggering. If genuine, these carvings suggest ancient Peruvians not only coexisted with dinosaurs but possessed medical and astronomical knowledge centuries ahead of their time. But here's the twist. The stones might be one of archaeology's most elaborate hoaxes, a mid-century forgery that still sparks heated debate. The story begins with a local farmer named Basilio Ashuya, who in the 1960s claimed to have discovered the stones in a cave near Ica. He sold them to Dr. Javier Cabrera, a physician and amateur archaeologist who became their most vocal advocate. Cabrera argued the stones were relics of a lost civilization, citing their intricate details, like the accurate depiction of a stegosaurus's bony plates or the precise anatomical knowledge in surgical scenes, as proof they couldn't have been faked. He even proposed they were created by an advanced race fleeing a cataclysm, preserving their knowledge in stone. But skeptics were quick to pounce. Geologists noted the stones lacked the patina of age, their carvings showing fresh, unweathered edges. Then, in 1975, Ashuya admitted in a BBC interview that he'd carved them himself, using dental tools and modern illustrations as inspiration. He claimed he'd aged the stones by baking them in cow dung. Case closed, not quite. Cabrera and other believers argued Ashuya recanted under pressure from Peruvian authorities, who feared the stones would discredit mainstream archaeology. Even today, some researchers point to anomalies like stones found in pre-Columbian burial sites or depictions of extinct animals unknown to 20th century textbooks as evidence that not all the carvings are modern. The real fascination lies in the stone's details. One shows a human riding a triceratops like a horse, another a heart transplant with veins meticulously rendered. How could a barely literate farmer in the 1960s replicate such precision without medical training? Some fringe theorists suggest Ashuya might have copied older, genuine stones now lost. Others propose the carvers tapped into collective memory or even extraterrestrial knowledge. But mainstream science dismisses these as desperate reaches, pointing to the era's booming market for faux antiquities. What makes the Ica stones endure isn't their authenticity, it's what they reveal about our hunger for mystery. In a world where history often feels neatly catalogued, they offer a tantalizing what-if. Whether clever hoax or misunderstood relic, they challenge us to question who gets to write the past and why we're so eager to believe in forgotten worlds. After all, the line between myth and history has always been thinner than we admit. And sometimes the greatest artifacts aren't those that change the past, but those that expose the stories we're desperate to tell ourselves. In the lush hills of Visoko, Bosnia, a discovery erupted onto the world stage in 2005 that would divide archaeologists and ignite nationalist pride: the so-called Bosnian pyramids. Local businessman and self-styled explorer Semir Osmanagic stood atop a rugged, forested hill and declared it wasn't just a natural formation but the largest pyramid on Earth, dwarfing even Giza's Great Pyramid. Dubbed the Pyramid of the Sun, its geometric slopes, he claimed, aligned perfectly with cardinal directions, while nearby hills concealed additional pyramidal structures, all part of a vast prehistoric complex built by an unknown civilization over 12,000 years ago. The media frenzy was instantaneous, drawing volunteers and tourists eager to rewrite history. But beneath the spectacle lay a far thornier question. Were these truly ancient marvels or the product of wishful thinking and political ambition? The evidence presented was dramatic. Osmanagic's team pointed to satellite imagery showing symmetrical faces and what appeared to be stepped terraces beneath the vegetation. Excavations revealed irregular stone slabs resembling cobblestones, which they argued were ancient concrete blocks. Thermal imaging suggested underground chambers, while seismic readings hinted at hollow spaces, potential tunnels connecting the pyramids. Even more tantalizing were claims of energy anomalies. Visitors reported feeling vibrations or electromagnetic pulses near the sites, fueling theories the pyramids were power generators or cosmic antennae. For many Bosnians still rebuilding after the Yugoslav wars, the idea of their homeland hosting a lost super-civilization was intoxicating, a source of unifying pride. But the scientific backlash was brutal. geologists from across Europe descended on Visoko, only to dismiss the pyramids as textbook examples of natural landforms. The pyramid shapes, they argued, were common flatiron formations caused by tectonic uplift and erosion of sedimentary layers. The stone blocks, fractured conglomerate rock, a natural process in the region's geology. As for the tunnels, they were likely medieval mines or natural karst cavities. The European Association of Archaeologists issued a scathing statement, calling the project a cruel hoax that distorted history for profit. Critics accused Osman Nagic of cherry-picking data, noting his background in pyramid theories. He'd previously written books about global pyramid networks built by aliens or Atlanteans. Yet the excavations continued, funded in part by the Bosnian government and buoyed by public enthusiasm. Volunteers from around the world flocked to dig, some paying for the privilege, while local businesses embraced the pyramid brand, selling souvenirs and tours. The site became a cultural battleground. For supporters, it symbolized defiance against Western academic elitism. For detractors, it was a case study in pseudoscience hijacking national identity. Even UNESCO refused to intervene, stating there was no evidence to warrant official investigation. What makes the Bosnian pyramids so enduring isn't their disputed origins, it's what they reveal about the human hunger for myth. In a region scarred by war, the pyramids offered a narrative of ancient greatness, a story where Bosnia was once the cradle of civilization, not just a footnote in modern conflicts. Whether geological quirks or deliberate constructions, they force us to confront how easily archaeology can blur into legend, and why we're so desperate to believe in hidden grandeur beneath our feet. And perhaps that's the real power of these hills, not as relics of the past, but as mirrors reflecting our deepest longing to belong to something older and grander than ourselves. Stretching like a scar across the Jordanian desert, the Kot Shebib Wall snakes through the landscape for over 90 miles, an ancient enigma built not to keep armies at bay, but perhaps to corral something far more elusive. Discovered in 1948 by British diplomat Alec Kirkbride, who spotted its crumbling remains during a routine flight, this meandering structure defies every expectation of monumental architecture. Unlike Hadrian's Wall or the Great Wall of China, it stands barely 3 feet high in most places, its basalt stones stacked without mortar in a jagged line that zigzags unpredictably between hills and valleys. For decades, archaeologists shrugged it off as a minor curiosity until satellite imagery revealed its true scale. A network of walls branching like veins across the desert, some sections running parallel just a few yards apart. Who built this sprawling, fragile barrier, and why go to such lengths for a wall that couldn't stop a determined goat? Bedouin oral traditions whisper tantalizing clues. Some elders speak of a legendary king who ordered its construction to pen in mythical beasts, ghosts that roamed the desert, or monstrous serpents said to slither from the underworld. Others claim it marked a boundary between ancient tribes, not to block movement but to define grazing rights in a land where water was worth more than gold. Then there's the theory that it functioned as a spiritual threshold, a physical manifestation of some long-forgotten taboo separating the sacred from the profane. The wall's haphazard path, which often detours around barren hills instead of taking direct routes, suggests its purpose wasn't defensive but symbolic, tracing invisible lines only its builders understood. Modern technology has peeled back another layer of mystery. In 2016, archaeologists using drone surveys and LiDAR mapping discovered something earlier explorers missed: hundreds of small towers dotting the wall at regular intervals, some barely taller than a person. These weren't watchtowers, they were too cramped for sentries, but perhaps storage units for nomadic herders or pilgrimage markers guiding travelers across the featureless terrain. Even more puzzling, carbon dating of charcoal fragments found near the wall places its construction between the Nabatean and Roman periods, a time when this region thrived as a crossroads of trade. Why would a culture proficient in carving Petra's temples bother with such a rudimentary structure? The answer might lie in the desert itself. Soil analysis along the wall's path reveals it was built during a centuries-long drought when shifting climates forced pastoralists to compete for dwindling resources. The Kot Shebib could have been an early form of land management, a way to funnel flocks along specific routes to prevent overgrazing. Or perhaps it was a collaborative project, a peace treaty in stone between rival tribes seeking to share the landscape without bloodshed. Unlike grand monuments meant to awe, this wall feels intimate, a pragmatic solution to survival in a merciless environment. What lingers isn't just the question of its purpose, but the quiet humility of its design. In a world obsessed with towering achievements, the Kot Shebib whispers a different truth. Sometimes the most enduring mysteries aren't forged from ambition, but from necessity. And in its crooked, crumbling path, we glimpse a dialogue between humans and the earth, one we're still learning to decipher. From the precision-carved gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the subterranean sprawl of Derinkuyu, these 25 discoveries don't just fill gaps in history, they tear them wide open. Each artifact, each ruin, each inexplicable inscription forces us to confront the same unsettling question. How much of humanity's story have we gotten wrong? Take the Peru Rise map, charting Antarctica's ice-free coast millennia before modern cartography existed, or the Baghdad Battery's whisper of ancient electricity. Consider Göbekli Tepe's towering pillars erected by hunter-gatherers who supposedly lacked the means or motive for monumental architecture. These aren't mere curiosities, they're seismic disruptions to the timeline we've carefully constructed. The patterns are impossible to ignore. Across continents and epochs, we find echoes of knowledge that shouldn't exist. Astronomical alignments in structures built before written language, metallurgy techniques rivaling modern industry, and megaliths moved with physics-defying precision. The Kochno stone's celestial codex, the Nazca line's aerial blueprints, the Voynich Manuscript's unbreakable cipher, they all point to a past far more sophisticated than textbooks allow. Even the anomalies dismissed as hoaxes like the Ica stones or Dropa discs linger in the collective imagination because they tap into a deeper truth. History is not a straight line, but a labyrinth with missing walls. So where do we go from here? Every discovery splits into twin possibilities. Either our ancestors achieved brilliance we've yet to fully comprehend, or we're standing on the rubble of civilizations lost to time and possibly catastrophe. The Great Pyramid's hidden chambers, the Baltic Sea's electromagnetic anomaly, the Tartaria tablets' pre-cuneiform script, they whisper of cultures that rose, innovated, and vanished without leaving a trace we've recognized. Or perhaps the fault lies in our own assumptions, in underestimating the ingenuity of those who came before us with nothing but stone, stars, and sheer determination. Here's the heart of the matter. Archaeology isn't just about uncovering the past, it's about humility. Each of these 25 enigmas is a mirror reflecting how little we truly know. They challenge us to consider whether impossible is just a word for mysteries we haven't solved yet. So what do you think? Are these artifacts fragments of forgotten empires, or proof that human potential has always been greater than we imagined? The comments are yours. Let's turn this excavation into a conversation. After all, the next great discovery might not lie buried in the earth, but in the ideas we share.